people will say, oh, it's lonely at the top. But you don't really get it until you're there in that situation. When you're facing your team, and this is the team that you're relying on, so you can't show more than you feel.
Yeah.
It feels very isolating to some degree. And I guess it's even
That's the
lonelier
loneliest, yeah.
as you go up.
If you want to be a leader or if you aspire to be a leader, it's important that you know how to be a follower. But when you're the driver, you also need to understand the dynamics of who your passengers are.
Do I really want to be liked or do I want to be trusted? Do I want to build my credibility or do I just want to build my popularity?
Yeah.
Because if you ask those questions, you will get the right answer.
Yep.
And the right answer is not popularity contest,
Yes.
right? You have to be effective. Otherwise, okay, your popularity is gaining traction, but your performance is not. And the team suffers.
So much sa mga
Yes.
sumuporta sa amin. Thank you to our beautiful and amazing teams.
Yes.
Our friends
Oo.
who are super duper
Supportive.
supportive, commenting, liking privately at saka publicly, and of course,
And our families.
families.
Siyempre,
Yes.
sila ang unang-unang
Sila yung
gumigising para
correct.
mag-like.
Yes. Our bosses.
Boss.
Yeah.
Ang boss
Yes.
naming butihin.
Yes, boss.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
So today we will be talking about leadership. This is a big part of all three of us and a big part of many of our viewers and our subscribers.
Yeah.
Yes, 170 po sila. Thank you.
One
Thank
of
you
the
po.
leadership is one of the threads that kind of keep us all together.
Correct.
Link us
Common
all together,
denominator,
yes.
yes.
One of the very many things that we have in common.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So, again, whether you're a leader or wanting to be a leader or being led by someone,
Yes.
Correct. Seasoned or new.
new,
Or
yes.
aspiring pa lang.
Oh,
Yes.
pwede.
Or leading your own business.
Yes.
Correct.
Or your staff, yes, at home. This episode is for you, our ka-TLC.
Yes.
May bago.
Yan ang
May
bago
bago
natin
tayo
for
Ay,
today.
kasi merong nagsuggest niya.
Correct. Thank you
Sino?
so much to Noel Humalon. for
Thank you so
suggesting.
much for
Right.
your suggestion.
Yes. So today, tatry po natin ang ka-TLC. Okay,
Yes.
mga ka-TLC, ready na ba tayo?
Ready.
Ready.
So let's jump right in. So let's start with the myth. Before you became
With the myth
leaders.
or with the
a
myth?
myth.
Ah, okay.
A myth,
Lilinawin mo
Also a
kasi.
myth. Hi, boss.
Hi, boss.
With the myth of leadership. When before you became a leader, nung mga kabataan po natin, kailan lang to? Recent lang.
Oo, mga 5
very
years.
recent.
Mga 5 years or thereabouts. What did you think leadership was about? Or what was it going to be about? Let's start with...
I'll start.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was an easy job. Like, easy, you'll just give instructions to people, kumpas-kumpas ka lang dyan, ganon, you're the boss, everybody will do as you say,
Yeah.
think of something, pwede yon, gagawin nila yon, ganyan. And this was as a very young child.
Yes,
To be
young
clear,
child.
baka akala
Young
nila,
child siya nun.
Talaga?
Oo, child.
oo. Baka kasi akala nila nung nag-umpisa na ako, ganun pa rin ang isip ko. Hindi. So, as a child, ganun ang inisip ko. I thought it was gonna be easy. Parang ikot-ikot ka lang na ganun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pumapara-parada.
Oo.
Okay.
Kumpas
Ang
nga ako.
Reyna. Mine was similar, yes. Pero hindi pumapara-parada. Pero for me, I thought it was going to be about showing how much more capable I was than the rest of the team.
Bida-bida ka talaga.
Yes.
Bida ka talaga.
Yes, yung kailangan ikaw pinaka-skilled.
Oo.
Ikaw pinakamaraming sagot at alam mo
Correct.
lahat. Yan ang aking thinking of. So, again, also when I was just a child, that was how I thought leadership was going to be. What about you, Besh, when you were a child?
Child talaga?
Oo.
Okay. Well, I think like any child, ganun yung perception that you build in your mind that you're always busy, running from one meetings to the other, may attache case kang ganyan, di ba? Siyempre, I think nung bata tayo, I don't think there were laptops yet.
Yeah,
So,
that's
you
true.
probably have like an attache case with all the files,
Yeah.
ganun. So, I think that was the perception early on, not knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
So,
Let's go there then. Now that we know what we know, now we know. Now we know what we know. And now, when we think about leadership and we hear the words, the brutal truths of leading people, of leadership, what do we think about that now? What do we know about that? Pag brutal truths, ano ba yung brutalan na yun? Ano yun?
For me, ang pinaka-brutal is Sometimes when you come to a realization, once in a while we get there, right? That people's lives and livelihood depend on you. Depend on the decisions that you make, whether right or wrong.
Yes.
Yan, parang you realize, di pala madali. It's not easy. And then people think you have to be perfect.
Yes.
That you're perfect. Buti na lang, perfect ako.
Yes, tama. Oo. Bigay natin sa kanya.
But that's, I think, for me, those two things are most difficult. Like knowing that people's lives and livelihood depend on you.
Yes.
And that there's an expectation for perfection.
Yes. The brutality of knowing that sometimes we make decisions and we don't have all the information.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things, a lot of questions. Ito yung mga 2 o'clock na umaga, gising ka pa, inisip mo, tama ba yung
Yes.
sinabi ko?
Tama.
Am I? And you rethink those decisions. And then, of course, the fact that a person can walk away from a conversation with you with their life changed, altered, and how they experience themselves, their confidence, iba na. There's just so much that you carry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's pretty similar. If I think about what is the brutal truth about my leadership journey, I think the biggest one is it's the emotional burden that you cannot delegate.
Yes.
You know, you can't assign a deputy to say, okay, hawakan mo muna yung burden yung ginawa ko. You can't do that. And you gotta be okay with the fact that you will become the place where tension goes to live.
Yes.
Because every day you will battle with irresolvable conflicts, right? For example, a client escalates. Sabihin lang, your team's not performing, etc., etc. And your team will say, nobody in the enterprise is meeting it. Nobody's met that target ever, etc. And you can argue all day about data, context, fairness. But at the end of it all, somebody has to pay the price. Somebody absorbs that cost,
Yes.
right? That tension. There is no win-win. Very rare na yun these days. And I think that's a common misconception. The second piece is, to your point, you're the emotional shock absorber.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fear flows upward.
Yep.
Diba? Disappointment flows upward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Doubt flows upward. Everybody throws it at you. Pero wala ka naman pwedeng sabihan na, saluhin mo naman yung akin.
Yeah.
Right? And you can't unravel. Last time you were talking about this, that we don't take it lightly, that all of our teams are looking at us.
Yes.
Yep.
So you can't do that. You have to be the steady one.
Yes.
And I think the last one is what you just said. The decisions that you make that follow people home.
Yep.
One conversation changes somebody's life. One decision I made in an hour is going to live with somebody for months. And you come home bringing that heaviness
Yeah.
too. So I think those are the brutality that we face on a very regular basis. If not daily, very regular.
And imagine when we were new, and we were new to this.
Oh.
And a lot of
And
our, yes, and we were younger. A lot of our
Significantly younger.
significant, kailangan po namin i-stress yung yang nung yang kami. When we were younger, much younger, how that felt to carry, like to suddenly realize that my decision makes an impact on somebody else's life and livelihood. And what that feels as a young leader, what that feels like as a young leader. And I bring it up kasi naalala ko yung unang beses ko na nagkaroon ng ganong experience of, I was a newly promoted trainer. So in the BPO industry, to those that are not aware, right? You're an agent. I started on the phones and then I became a trainer. And as a trainer, though you're not like a supervisor or a TL, the class, for the duration of their training, they report into you. So you manage everything, their concerns, everything. And what I learned was part of my job was to decide who will pass, who will continue their employee journey, and who will not. It was siguro first 3-5 classes ko, and there was somebody that didn't make it through the toll gates.
Yeah.
Didn't make it. And binigyan ng retake, hindi pa rin pumasa. So we had to terminate. The next day, bumalik siya. And dala niya yung mag-ina niya.
Oh my God.
Dala niya yung mag-ina niya and bagong panganak, yung asawa niya. The baby was small, as I remember clearly. And I remember, ano ako noon? 15 years, dala ko 20, ano. Diba? So napakabata ko pa in my career. And sitting in the meeting room with him and him begging na I've tried and, this is what's gonna and I remember, of course, walang nangyari. I mean, we couldn't give him what he wanted. I remember very vividly, yung palabas sila ng office, nung lobby natin, nung floor, silang tatlo, silang mag-asawa, looking at them as they were walking out and thinking about how it would have been easy to say, sige na po, okay na.
Yeah.
And I could not do it. And I wasn't supposed to do it. And that was for me probably the cold water of, shoot, so this is what I've signed up for. This is, so I'm sure you have.
Yeah, and that's the emotional burden that I was talking about, right? You can't ask somebody else to take it on for you.
Yes.
You make that decision. You know that you're going to face, later on, after many of those decisions, you know that you will go home, carry that. You never get numb to it.
Yes.
But you still have to do it.
Yep.
Diba? So I think that's my biggest brutality or the brutal truth about leadership.
Okay.
Ako, what yanked me out of,
The myth.
Yes. The very first, I think it's the very first. And my team called me a team captain. So I'm I'm captain. So para to sa mga naging team leader. Naging team leader ba kayo? Or do you aspire to be a team leader? You became a team leader, right? So it was my first team in the BPO. We got so close kasi during training, kasama mo sila, right? So sa training, lahat kayo magkakasama, magkakapantay.
Right.
Tapos right off of training, team leader agad ako. So yung mga naging kabarkada ko, that was very difficult. Yung getting used to, magkakabarkada kayo, lumalabas kayo after training, and then suddenly, boom, you're the authority. Yes. Nag-absent. Nakatatlong absent. Yung ka-close ko talaga. And they will know who they are. Tropa kasi to. Nag-absent.
Baka naman kasali ka niya doon,
Ito
kasama
nga.
ka niya.
So, nag-absent, pinapilan ko. Right? Kasi sinabi niya sa akin, Tonichi, I'm going to Eastwood, Ay, okay. Sabi niya, ano sasabihin ko? Hindi, pumunta ka dito, ganyan. So, again, it was my first team leader gig, right? So, pagdating, pinapilan ko, shocked siya. As in, shocked. Like, sabi niya, kala ko friends tayo.
Galit.
Galit. So, it took some time for her to understand. But eventually, of course, she did.
Yeah.
Pero to me, that was such a simple example of you, especially for our new promotees, right? Na there will come a time where you will be leading people who were your peers.
Yes.
And that, for me, for a promotion is one of the most difficult things.
It's always a difficult transition.
Yeah.
Pabalik tanaw. Ang tagal.
Napakalayo.
Ang layo po ng
Malayo.
pagbabalik tanaw natin. Oo. So, let's stay on the track of the emotional cost of leadership. No? So, when does leadership, or what is it about leadership that is the loneliest? Because people will say, oh, it's lonely at the top. But you don't really get it until you're you're there in that situation. For me, it's when we, like tayo, there's meetings we come from and we know information and you know more than what you can tell your team.
Yeah.
Like you know what's going to happen next, but you can't tell anybody.
Not yet.
Not yet. And then you feel what that's going to do, but you can't show it.
Yeah.
So to me, yun yung mga moments of you feel like it is a very lonely job. When you're facing your team and this is the team that you're relying on, so you can't show more than you feel. You can't say more than you know. So it feels very isolating to some degree, right? And I guess it's even
That's
lonelier
loneliest,
as you go up, I'm sure. Like,
aside from not being able to share information, I think the bigger thing is when you have to make the decision and you carry the weight of that decision alone, right? Sure, you can do sense check, you can consult, diba? You can sometimes gain insights, feedback from different people or members of your team. And even if your teammates are all collaborative, at the end of the day, you gotta make the call, right? You're gonna have to pull that trigger and say, okay, here's the direction we're gonna go. This is what we're gonna do. And that burden of the decision you make is all yours to absorb.
Yeah.
Right? The impact of that is all yours. Kahit na nakuha mo yung inputs nila, hindi naman sila kahati dun sa bigat ng impact ng decision na yun. They will have a say in it, like everybody will, right? But they will not share that burden. They will not share the weight of the decision that you just made. And let alone, syempre, information is one. You want to share it to them so that they fully understand. Making the call is different.
Yes.
Diba? I think that's a heavier strain on your shoulder as a leader.
That, and then you have to very quickly metabolize that emotion.
Yeah.
And then
Process
face
it privately.
them
Yeah.
again and be okay again.
Sometimes, I don't think people realize that we have to internalize. Whenever whenever I'm about to coach someone and it's going to be a difficult conversation, sometimes it takes a day for you to truly grasp what you're going to say, how you're going to say it.
Yes.
You go through that, is it fair? Are you making the right decision? Is it the right
Yes.
thing to do for him, for you, for the company? Lahat yun kasi you have
You
to think of-
agonize over it.
Yes. Yeah. And then you just have to figure out how to communicate it in such that it's clear,
Yeah.
but it's direct.
Yeah.
Diba?
And clarity doesn't always minimize the impact.
Yes.
Oh,
Diba?
yes.
Kadalasan, marami, actually, it's very common that people understand it logically, but it doesn't sink in.
Yes.
Iba yun eh. I think one of the, and maybe I'm jumping off of here, but one of the biggest learnings that I have in leadership is that people don't necessarily look at it from a logical point of view all the time.
Yes.
Right? People play the card of how does this impact me? Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? Will I lose something? Diba? When you make a decision, especially if it's yun nga, yung mga kanina natin pinag-usapan, things that follow you home,
Yeah.
hindi siya cognitive lang.
Yes.
And you'll be surprised that actually a lot of new leaders are surprised na, ay, naintindihan niya naman, pero ba't siya galit? Diba? Bakit hindi niya na nakuha yung reaction?
Okay, yaman din lamang. Yes.
Naks.
Yaman din lamang.
Tagalog.
Nagbaon ng Tagalog. Yaman din lamang na nandito na tayo sa segment ng hard decisions. Let's talk about some hard calls.
Yeah.
Hard calls that we've made in our lives. Na hindi po ito mamili ng mga bibiling bag, hindi po mga ganun ito. Although hard din yung call na yun. Oo. Pero the hard calls we've made. So, let's think about, have we ever kept someone in a role or on your teams, even if we knew that they weren't cut out for the job because of empathy, because of misplaced kindness, I guess? Yes, right? We all.
Well,
Si Madam, go.
okay.
Sige, madam.
Yes, ako. Yeah, well, definitely.
Yes.
I think what I'm finding is that it also bites me at the back, right? You know, so it's easy for me to think about all the good things kasi I'm trained to do that. Think of the good things about other people. That's why, okay, sa segue ako doon. That's why when I'm about to deliver a news that's really bad, life-altering,
Yeah.
I also think about, okay, why am I doing this? What will this do to him or her? What will this do for the company? So, example, when I'm about to talk to somebody because I have to separate that person, I have to think about, okay, why did we hire him in the first place? Lahat yon, I have to go through that. Like, was I the one who made a mistake in hiring him? Did I profile him correctly, her? Or did we train? Lahat, it goes through that. Did we train that person? Did we give them the opportunity to be the best that they can be? If I check all those things and I say, okay, I think I gave everything that I could to this person and it's still not working, then maybe this person is not fit for this role and will be fit in another role, maybe in the company or outside of the company, right? For me, I think about it as 8 hours of our lives we spend at work. That's 1/3 of our lives every day.
Yeah.
So if that person is not performing, there has to be some heaviness in that person also. Then I think from that perspective, it will make me feel good if I know that I gave everything.
Yes.
And I'm letting that person check out what other opportunities
Yes.
He or she won't know that yet at that moment because it's painful, it's devastating, it will impact their lives. But in the long run, it is good for that person, it's good for me,
Yeah.
and it's good for the company. I
Yes.
think that entire exercise, I go through that when I do a very difficult decision, like something like that.
And I think it's important to point out something you said there, that we really, as leaders, need to remember before I don't want to call it give up on someone, but you give the person now whether it's a termination, a separation, we have to ask ourselves that question of a hand over heart.
Yes.
Have we done everything we could for this person?
Yes.
And I think that helps sort of justify the separation in our minds. But at the end of the day, even if you know you've done everything, it still does not erase the result. It
Doesn't
feels
change
so
anything.
awful.
Yes.
There's nothing easy about a call where the other person's life is getting
Right.
the income, the
Yeah.
future, their confidence in themselves. Nothing easy about a call like that. So
Lalo na yung if masipag and they're trying
Yes.
so hard and too hard.
I was going to go
Diba?
there actually. Thinking about empathy.
Yeah.
Have you ever kept somebody long enough in the role because of empathy? Or in Filipino terms, probably because you feel for that person, yung nakikiramdam ka, di ba? I've learned through the process that empathy is often crossed over with avoidance.
That's
Diba?
true.
Lalo na, you know that the person is struggling.
Yeah.
yes.
You know all the metrics are there, all the data is there, telling you na it's not going the right direction. Right?
Yep.
But you understand why. You know that this person they care,
Yeah.
they used to work really hard,
Yes.
they had a strong season in the past, they weren't always like this. You understand why, and you use that. Diba? In
Yeah.
your mind, you use that and say, one more quarter, one more chance.
Yes.
Baka next month, ma-turn around na to. Next month ulit, right? Until it becomes, you think or you convince yourself that you're being kind or empathetic towards this person, especially if they're in a not so good situation, personally, whatever. But I think you need to snap out of it and realize when your empathy becomes avoidance.
Yeah.
Are you moving away from delaying a decision? Are you moving away from having a very tough conversation, right? And you're masking it with empathy.
Yeah. I think it's a great point. And one of my favorite lines these days is the saying that empathy, a lot of people say it's a soft skill, but empathy is actually not. Empathy
It's
is a
not.
sharp skill. And
Yes.
what it is, it should help us see the human accurately in the situation. That's what true empathy is. And your point earlier is people mistake it for empathy, but it's actually them avoiding a difficult conversation, it's avoidance of that decision that
Yeah.
you know
And
that will
actually,
change the person.
in that example, right? You think about empathy, you say, it's delaying the decision. You're
Yes.
giving him more time.
Yeah, yeah.
One more quarter, one more month, etc. Aayos din yan.
Oo.
But what I learned is that empathy sometimes is giving
Yes.
the truth
Yes.
early.
Yes.
Early.
Yes.
And empathy is not about whether you act or not. Empathy is how you act. Empathy shapes how, not whether you should or should not.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like that comes with maturity in leadership. Madali lang siya ikwento,
Yes.
pero pag nandun ka na, especially if the people involved are people you've worked with for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like we have people in our teams na
Yes.
dekada na nating
Yes.
katrabaho, right? So
Yeah.
it's not easy at all, but I think it's a common pitfall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that, any stories around
Oh my
decisions we've made where it looked really harsh, but it was the right thing to do. But it was, even if it looked it was the right thing to do for the business on paper. It felt so painful. And people judge it.
yeah.
People will say,
Ang ruthless
Grabe
mo.
naman. Oo.
Ang harsh mo, Larah.
oh, ako recently, and I think this was a decision that I had made, and it involved somebody who was a performer, an asset for the organization. And people judged that decision because from the outside, they look at it and they say, but this person was somebody who delivered for the
Yeah.
company. That's how it looked on the outside, and it looks harsh. But really, truthfully, at the core of that decision is, being a performer does not give you the license to drain people. It does not give you the license to create a feeling that people can't thrive where they're working 1/3 of their life, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people will look at a decision like that and say, this person gave so much. How can you just let that person go? So I think decisions like that it's just part of
I
the
think
stories.
First yan, it's always that. When you try to replace or separate somebody that people liked
Yes.
or that people trusted or used to be high-performing, diba? Or even if they're currently performing,
Yeah.
but obviously you can't share some details or data behind it. That's a first parang cold or ruthless decision that they judge. The second to me is I have made decisions where I did not include certain people in high-stake initiatives when they actually almost expected na part sila nun. And I did that because the project cannot afford learning curve. Minsan, kailangan mong i-let go yung fairness optics
Yeah.
because the business cannot handle a learning curve period. You need to deliver. And it wasn't because, this person is this person is that. No, it's not about the person. It's about the situation. And I think the most unpopular cold decisions that I have made is holding the line on standards and quality when people are exhausted. And they tell me na parang, boss, grabe ka naman. Pagod na kami lahat. Grabe naman. Baka naman pwedeng ibaba na natin tong requirement na to or we can bend this standard. My mantra is always this. Never settle for a short-term comfort over a long-term health. Parang katawan mo lang, di ba?
Yeah.
Masakit mag-gym, masakit mag-workout. But you never settle for not doing anything because your health will suffer later on. And same thing with business, same thing with leadership. You hold that standard even when it's painful because it will bite you back. And I've been called ruthless, heartless, walang awa in those situations. But I do them all over again and still repeat the same decision.
Let's talk about unpopular decisions, particularly what that does. Years and years, a lot of people in leadership roles think about the debate or the conflict between being liked versus making the tough calls. And as young leaders, you often feel like my decisions have to be well received by people. This is how I know I'm getting it right if people are happy. I'm a good manager if I make people feel good.
Yes.
Let's talk about that thin line of being liked and what that means or what that should not mean for us as leaders. Or maybe we start with, when did you realize that being liked it cannot be, it's a very expensive hobby for a leader to be liked. When did you realize that?
To me, it's very simple. Once you start noticing that progress is not coming and scores are not moving or things are not progressing the way they should be, you know how we operate, right? There's always a timeline. There's always a milestone. There's always, this pit stops that you need to do as a check and balance. Being like gets you to be popular.
Yeah.
People trust you easy. The vibe is there. Chill lang kayo lahat. That's always the favorite thing of people to do with leadership. But in reality, once you start na, parang dito gumagalaw Parang ang tagal na natin dito. In the last episode, you talked about hovering, right? Yung yellow mo, hindi nagiging green. Ang hirap nun. And I think that's when you really think about, do I really want to be liked or do I want to be trusted? Do I want to build my credibility or do I just want to build my popularity?
Yeah.
Because if you ask those questions, you will get the right answer.
Yep.
And the right answer is not popularity contest,
Yes.
right? You have to be effective. Otherwise, okay, your popularity is gaining traction, but your performance is not. And the team suffers.
Yeah. Do you think that's more something that women deal with? That
Not really.
because we get
I
judged,
guess maybe
because
yes,
we get
but not really because I've seen leaders, I've seen men.
You mean like being like
Yeah.
that
Yung nandun
conflict.
talaga.
That conflict. That's more a woman thing to deal with because we worry about, we get judged quite a bit. We make a tough decision. Dati yung bait-bait ni Claire. Ngayon,
bago na siya.
Yes, ay pwede ba yun?
Never naman ako nasabihan ng gano'n.
Oo. Yes,
Ni-
I'm
ay,
sure.
Oh,
Tingin ko.
Ay, hindi. That's not true.
Really?
Never kang
Yes.
nasabihang ano.
Na BITC.
Oo, yes, in-spell. Okay.
Never or nasabihan ka na?
Hindi, nasabihan ako
Oh, okay.
noon. Never naman yung super bait ko. Parang, kasi, so, di ba nga, in the previous episodes, pinag-usapan natin ang pagiging poster girl ko. So, there was a company where doon ako talaga na-promote and all of that. So, when I left that company and joined another company as a vice president kaagad, so nobody knew me, bibo-bibo ka, di ba? So, I said, okay, let's put some standards here, ganyan, you're not coming to work, out, ganon. So, parang na-shock yung mga tao na, okay, ibang klase.
Bumalik ka na ibang pagkatao ka na.
Actually, it was there. Then I realized na, okay, wait, parang mali yung ginawa ko. Even when I knew I was doing the right thing,
Yes.
because there were people who have not gone to work for like a month and they're still there. When I-
Ghost employees.
Yes.
Hindi, nandun sila.
Okay,
Minsan nandun sila. So, tapos yon backlash, right?
Right.
Then I realized, okay, wait, maybe I should have listened first.
Yes.
So, medyo nag-iba ako ng tono. After that, dun ko na-realize na, okay, you can't just go in thinking you're the smartest kid in town and change everything. So, that was one part of it. But after that, I was very conscious about leaning towards the popularity and the niceness because people naturally think that I'm just nice.
Yes.
And it's not true.
Yes. Oh, she's not as nice as you think.
Yes, I'm not. So,
Pinapaliwanag ko lang
so,
po.
para lang malinaw, mahaba kasi ang PC ko.
You're patient.
My patient, very patient. I think too patient to a fault.
Yeah.
I would say, I know myself.
Yes.
Yes.
Ayos. Too patient to a fault. That's why I call myself out na, okay, wait.
Tama
Am I
na.
tama ba na sinabing too patient ako dito sa tao na to? Or, so, because I am very conscious about it, and maybe even my boss tells me that, Tonichi, you're too nice. Okay, I have to reflect if that's the niceness that's coming out, or it's the logic, or it's the relationship aspect. So, pero I know myself already to call myself out.
Aware ka na.
Aware na ako.
And I've learned that it's okay. And you were talking about standards earlier. You can be the person that people like to be around, somebody that your team, they will look up to you, they're inspired by you, and still hold those standards.
Yeah.
It should not be a conflict.
Yeah.
It should not be, I have to hold standards or else people won't like me.
Yeah.
It can be done both. Both can be there. So I think we learn that over time, and we believe in our decisions more, and we have more faith in ourselves. So, you know, that comes out. But I think it's possible. Don't think that you will have to be unpopular, you know, but that's part of leadership, definitely.
But you know what? I also think that's the reason why a diverse team like ours works.
So kung, okay, sige.
Kasi
Tatanong ko sana,
we call
sabi
each
mo.
other
So
out.
ako yung
eh.
nice?
Oo. Ay, Tonichi, tigilan mo na yan. Tigilan mo na yan.
Kasi
Baka
inisip ko
OA mo.
sino? Sino yung nice?
Kinu-call out niya na ngayon katotohanan.
Yes, I think our boss thinks we're much nicer than we actually are. So, hindi lamang katotohanan. Okay. So, a lot of stories and learning. And so now we've come years and years in this journey. Let's now think about what lessons or what is something we want our listeners to come away with. Like, what is leadership really? I guess what aspect of leadership should they think about more? What's your imparting lesson, or what lesson do you want to impart? Especially to younger managers. I'll start.
Go ahead.
Dahil nasabi ko younger manager, naisip ko lang, na young ako. Hindi. Naisip ko lang na when you're a young manager, you kind of think that leadership, and this is my lesson then that I want to impart the viewers now. Because we have a lot of Gen Z folks, like they message me and I say, hi, Gen Z. Ganon. Because when you're a younger manager, you tend to think that being a leader, one of the measures is how people perceive you. It's about how do I show up? Am I getting it right? Are people saying that I'm getting it right? But actually, when you stop thinking about yourself and it becomes about other people, that is when you really start becoming a leader. Because It's less about yourself and your capabilities, and it's more about what you create for your teams, right? It's more about the opportunities you create for them, the momentum you create for them. That is when you are starting to become a leader. And I think we need to remind ourselves, especially in the early part of our leadership journey kasi, we tend to focus on us kasi syempre, it's
Naturally.
it's an identity shift from being a contributor to now being, on a certain pedestal. So I think it's important to remember that it cannot be about yourself. And that's when you start really leading. Yeah.
Ako naman.
Hindi, kapitbahay.
Ako, okay, sandali lang. Ako, I think if you want to be a leader or if you aspire to be a leader, it's important that you know how to be a follower.
Yeah.
Kasi it's like driving a bus, right? Minsan, driver ka, minsan, pasahero ka. Pag pasahero ka, dapat maayos kang pasahero. But when you're the driver, you also need to understand the dynamics of who your passengers are.
Yeah.
So that you can capitalize on their skills, their talents.
That's true.
Yeah.
Tama, you're right earlier when you said, sabi nga ni Colin Powell,
Yes.
a leadership primer.
Grabe, tagal na nun.
Oo, di ba?
Napaga.
Na-dated na naman ako.
You dated yourself.
It's lonely at the top.
Yes. Kunyari,
It's
hindi ko alam.
lonely at the top.
It's lonely at the top. And it is true to some degree.
Yes.
But I also know that it doesn't have to be.
Correct.
And this is why we're here.
Yes.
Diba? This is why we cultivate friendships.
Yes.
And colleagues to have relationships like as productive as, this.
This.
Right?
Yes.
Alam mo yun?
I think my advice is this. For people who think or they believe they want to be leaders, aspiring leaders, no, you need to understand that leadership, it's not an upgrade. Kasi feeling mo na-promote ka, upgrade yun. No, it's not an upgrade. It is a trade-off. It is a huge trade-off. If you think about, you gain influence, but you lose comfort. You should say goodbye to comfort. You should be okay with discomfort.
Yes.
You think about you gaining authority, ganyan. But really, you also lose the ability or the freedom to share how you feel very openly.
Yeah.
You can't do that, right? And, you definitely lose the freedom to say, okay, I'll worry about myself now. You have to worry about everybody else
Yes.
and your whole team.
Yeah.
And I think people think na, yun nga, kasi authority, okay na, my voice will be heard. I am now in a position where people will automatically follow me. You are dead wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You will be surprised that people understand and will not follow. And I think lastly, if I think about it, if what you're chasing is approval, being liked, popularity, you will be very disappointed if you go into leadership that's your expectation. Because the reality is, yes, leadership is winning, but more often than not, and what people don't normally see or usually see is leadership is being misunderstood, lonely, quiet, and it takes a lot of grit. You need to have that grit.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. Don't think of it as it's an upgrade. No, it's a trade-off. And you gotta be ready for the trade-off.
Yes. The emotional labor that comes with leadership is a lot
Sabi ko pa
more
naman
than...
dati, ayoko ng emotions, ayoko ng drama.
totoo.
I underestimated
Yeah,
that.
tsaka
That's true.
be ready to be misquoted.
Yeah.
Diba? Parang
Yes.
ilang beses sa teams, sa conversation, sinabi ni boss ganito, wala ka namang sinabing ganon. So yun yung mga
That's
ready
my
rin
most
kayo.
humbling experience, yung emotions. I thought,
Emotional labor.
kaya ko yan.
Yeah.
Galing naman ako, matalino
Yeah.
naman ako. But dealing with it
Yes.
was much more difficult than just getting the work done.
Yeah, and holding the room while you're going through your own, I need to digest my emotion and that's the work.
Yes.
Yung gusto mo na sumabog.
That's the work
Tapos
sometimes.
dadaanin mo na lang sa,
Yes.
I understand you.
And then you move to the next, So it's
the art of poker face.
Yes.
Right? You gotta master that very well.
it's a trip.
And I can say that you have mastered it.
Yes. Yes.
May
Very
kwento
well.
naman.
For a
Hindi na
next
kwento.
episode.
Yung mga
Bueno.
Teams meetings
Yeah.
natin.
So,
Na si Larah, pag di kinakaya, pinapatay yung camera. Tapos
kasi naman,
ano ba?
pag nagpapatawa, talaga, hindi ko kaya minsan. As in, gumaganito pa yung mukha ko, gano'n. Okay. On that note, we tried to end on a laugh here,
high
but
note.
a high note. But we hope that you have learned something from the conversation we had today. These are things that we experience every day, and you probably experience every day as well. That hopefully the time you've spent with us today has been meaningful. And we hope that you will join us again in our next conversation.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Do not forget to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell.